Alright, we're done with racket sports and combat sports. Richard, let's turn our attention to team sports, which we saw Singapore compete in close to 12 disciplines. Let's try to briefly touch on each of them, starting with netball. And for the second straight games, unfortunately, we saw a women's team being forced to settle for the silver medal. That's after losing to Malaysia again in the finals. The last time we won gold was 4 years ago. And Charmaine So, the captain, today is the only sole surviving member of the squad. Do you reckon the transition of the entire team in the last 4 years has led to the inability to be number one in the region again, Richard?
Okay, well in 2017 they lost to Malaysia in the final.
Yeah.
It was quite a wide margin. Right? So there was quite a lot of renewal in the team and it was taking time to settle them. They've narrowed that margin.
Yeah.
I think they've had some challenging games against Malaysia, which is good because it's helping to raise the standards of our team. They've gone through transition, they've gone through renewal, but they've gone through it in a very smooth way. I take my hats off to them for that. Whilst it wasn't the gold that we all hoped for, they came away with a very credible performance. And I think we've got to look at the nature of the performance, which is that they closed the gap. And so we're overall pleased with the way things are going. We know there's more in them. They've, as you said, they've gone through almost complete team renewal, which bodes well for the future.
Okay. All right, let's get a quick word from our coach Natalie Milicic after that heartbreaking loss to Malaysia in the grand final.
Look, I think that we really showed a lot of courage today. I think that we started the match very, very well. And I think, that some of our young players really stood up to the physicality. So I'm very, very proud of the overall result.
Okay. And now summing up, this is 2 years. It's been 2 years in the working. How would you sum up this entire campaign, SEA Games campaign?
Yeah, look, I think what's been really important is that we've built some depth within the squad. I think that, losing Kimberly was a really big loss for us because she was a very key player. So some of these young players have really had the opportunity to show what they're capable of, and I think they'll all be a lot stronger for it when they actually compete in a couple of years' time.
Final question, what's next for the team?
So next for the team, the big event is they've got Asian Championships next year. So they will go back now and concentrate though on the NSL time, with their club teams, and then they'll start building on to the Asian Champs, which is mid next year.
And that was Coach Natalie, and we just heard last week that it was announced that Coach Natalie has stepped down from her post after 2 years and she's returning to New Zealand to spend more time with her 4 children. She's been away for quite a long time. So we wish Coach Natalie Milicic the very best with the family back in New Zealand. All right, Richard, let's touch briefly on floorball. And the women's team were able to defend their gold medal from 2015, but our men's team finished second. Did SSI project for both teams to win in the Philippines, and what's your take on the men's silver medal finish?
Okay, actually in our simulations beforehand, we anticipated that women would do well.
Yeah.
And again, we hoped for the gold medal. They delivered that. Not only did they deliver that, they backed it up at the World Championships. So they went straight from the SEA Games and they've improved their ranking in the world by going to the World Championships, playing for the 11th, 12th playoff.
Yeah, they arrived in Singapore, 24 hours later they left for the World Championship.
That's correct. So, it's a tough old schedule, but they performed really, really well. The men, we didn't actually project them to win a gold medal. We hoped that they would. Okay. So they performed at the level that we thought. We knew the ties were going to be tough. But to lose in in essence a draw and then penalties was disappointing. Disappointing not because we think they underperformed, but disappointing because it was so close. I remember sitting watching them. They were 5-8 up, and the ties managed to pull back from them, which was a real shame because then the ties had the momentum going into the penalty shootout, and we just lost out on the penalty shootout. It could easily have been a gold medal, and that sport, it's on a knife edge. That sport, we just didn't deliver this time around. But I thought they performed credibly. I thought their performance was up to standard. They were within a whisker.
Well, floorball was missing 2 years ago in KL. Let's hope Vietnam, when they host it in 2021, they'll have floorball as well. So from floorball, we transition to football. Boon Yi.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it was never going to be easy for under 22s to compete in the group of death. They went 4 games without scoring a single goal. That set a new record of sorts. Before finding the net 7 times in their final group match against Brunei. Was Coach Fandi Ahmad right in saying that unlike the other countries, he's unable to groom and train one team for a period of 4 to 6 years solid, especially with the need to study, to work, national service? Boon Yi, are those the real issues of the disappointing run this time round?
I think we can all appreciate what Coach Fandi has to deal with in terms of the challenges relative to what other nations in SEA Games have to deal with. Yeah. So school studies, national service, part and parcel, right? But it's not unique to football. Our swimmers have to deal with the same issues. Everyone, right? Loh Kin Yew, badminton, completed his national service last year and went on to represent us and did well this time round. I think for team sport like football, which is very competitive in the Southeast Asian level, we really need to look at building up a system, a youth development system that can create and communicate a very clear pathway to all the athletes, the young athletes and their parents, to commit to pursuing the sport to that level. And I think if we can get that sorted out, I think let's continue to be work in progress. It will take time. Then we could continue to be. We would then be able to be more competitive at this level. And I mean, the other countries, Cambodia beat Malaysia, and
Cambodia went to the semi-final.
Yes. Laos, Myanmar, they have all brought the game up to a different level. So it will continue to be challenging, but we should take all those challenges in our stride and deal with it at a system level.
Well, I believe Vietnam went on to win the final, and it was their first gold medal in football in close to 3 decades. Prior to the final, of course, Singapore met Vietnam in their 3rd group match. Let's hear from Coach Fandi after that heartbreaking loss to Vietnam when they scored in the 85th minute of the game.
No, I'm happy about the performance. The result could be gone either way, or a draw would be happy for us, because I thought we did very well. We did enough to stop them from scoring, and we knew we came here because it's a burden. We haven't scored any goals, so a pressure for us. But to get a point is more important. So we are very happy with the performance, but not the result. Finding the right players, because I told you they never train together most times. It's not easy. Some teams they've been together for years. Every year we have to change teams. You know this. You can write it there. Because we never had a team to keep for 2 years, 3 years. Every year is a change. I hope so. Because if not, we will go every year. We cannot have the same team. Now, after this, you know where they go. I won't tell you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Well, still on football, and we have to address the elephant in the room, and the entire fiasco of 9 players breaking curfew while the tournament is still ongoing and apparently sneaking out to a casino. So, Boon Yi, how should the SNOC or the FAS approach this issue and send a clear signal to all national athletes regarding the core values of the code of conduct, which they all swore to uphold before leaving for the SEA Games?
There's no two ways about it. I think responsibility and accountability have to be demanded through a proper process, of course. But like you say, send a very clear message that we require all our national athletes, when they put on the national jersey, to represent us, to hold themselves up, to fly our flag. And in high performance sports at this level, what goes on outside the competitive field usually determines what goes on inside on the field, right? So if we are not able to establish the basic discipline, the basic attitude towards pursuit of sport, then chances are we will not be able to deliver. The team did go on to do better in the subsequent matches.
Because that was a tie. They went out after the 3-0 loss to Thailand.
They went out no matter what. It's nothing to do with I think the loss, and so there should be no excuse. And I would say that in the entire ecosystem, coaches need to be able to establish those values and culture all the way. And by the time a player reaches the national level, I think that must be assumed to be given. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just come in here?
Sure.
Because I think for me, in performance sport, there are many variables that you can't control, and there are many variables that you can control. Right? So you try and control the controllables, the variables that you're in control of. And I think behaviour is one of those variables that you're in control of. And I think for me, that was the most disappointing thing of this. This was one of the variables that they could control themselves, and I feel that they let themselves down.
Just straight up, if they had just kept quiet and then they went for the final game, they won 7-0, they didn't finish last in the group, so that means the campaign is over against Brunei. If they had gone out on that night after that game, would it have been an issue?
Yes, I think it would.
It would still be an issue.
Because it's your behaviour within the competition. You're still bound by the athlete agreement that you have signed, and you have signed knowing up front that there is a certain standard of behaviour expected of you, and that you have agreed to comply with that.
Okay. Boon Yi? Yeah?
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Okay, so moving from football to an unexpected goal, Richard, in the sport of softball, and our men's team beat the Filipinos twice en route to the goal. Why is their winning moment special and significant, so much so that even Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, featured them on his own Facebook page last week?
Okay, why is it so significant? What's the first one? And I think it's significant because of the dominance of the Philippines.
Right.
So the softball competition's been held 10 times. Philippines have only lost twice, right? So that's huge against the Philippines on their home ground. I think that's a tremendous story. And then when you start digging into the team, there's all sorts of smaller stories that go to make up the bigger narrative. I think, was it a surprise to us? Yes, it was. However, were there indications that they could do it? Absolutely there were. I've read some pieces around we should be better informed. Well, we were well informed. We knew that they'd beaten them at the World Championships, that we knew that they'd placed higher than them at the World Championships, and that we knew that we should watch out for them. The thing that's in the back of your mind is, whilst they beat the Philippines at the last World Championships, they've never done it in the SEA Games. Okay, so what was particularly pleasing is actually they got heavily beaten in the preliminary rounds. I think it was 8-0. And they came back in the semi-finals. They beat the Philippines, and then the Philippines, because of the nature of the competition, got a second bite of the cherry, and they went on and beat them again. So it was pretty conclusive, and they cemented that they showed absolutely that it wasn't a fluke. I love the story around what the coach and team manager have been saying about, no, this was a planned approach. Yeah, fantastic, but you must have hoped that you were going to get the right outcome.
Yeah.
And hey, they did.
They did, yeah.
Good for them.
Kudos to our softball team. Well done. We have time to touch on one more team sport, that is men's basketball. We finished in 5th place in Manila due to an unexpected loss to Vietnam, who apparently had 7 foreign talents in their squad this time round, and they caught our team by surprise. That is what the team, when we spoke to them, that was their admission. But the Filipinos also won the SEA Games gold in 19 out of 21 editions. What are they doing, which we are still lacking in men's basketball, despite the presence of several national players featuring for the professional Singapore Slingers franchise in the ABL season?
Okay, I think there's 2 things here. One is about ourselves. I think that we need to work a little bit harder about getting better synergy within basketball within Singapore. We've got a fantastic pro basketball team in the Slingers. I think we've got to look at how we get better synergy between the Slingers and the national team. The second is actually something that's outside of our control, which is the Filipinos allow dual passport. So they draw very heavily upon players that come from America who have a Philippine background, either through birth or through parentage, and that allows them to bring people in. And clearly Vietnam are doing something similar. Our system doesn't allow that. Okay, we accept that. So we've got to focus upon what we can do better, which is the domestic situation, making sure there's alignment between the National League here, between the slingers and between the national team. And I think we've got to work a little bit harder at that.
Okay. Boon Yi, let's address winter sports next, as Cheyenne Goh and Chloe Ng dominated the headlines with their sizzling cool performances. Cheyenne won 3 gold medals, while Chloe added a 4th gold. So this was in the sporting discipline of ice skating. Hence, Boon Yi did CISA, which is the governing body of ice sports. I mean, CISA is in Singapore's Ice Skating Association. Did they play their cards right this time around?
Fantastic result from Singapore, a little tropical nation with only one Olympic-sized ice rink, right? Yeah, of course, our the 2 ladies, they do train abroad, and they have access to very high quality coaching as well as facilities. But I think for CISA, the key is really to continue to bring in more young athletes into the sport, leveraging on our ice rink, so that more the pipeline can be created, and we can sustain our performance over time.
Okay. Talking about the ice, we also saw our men's ice hockey team clinch the silver medal in only their 2nd games appearance ever, without a purpose-built ice rink for them to train and compete in Singapore. I mean, purpose-built as in just for the national athletes. Were you surprised to see them on the podium standings, the men's ice hockey team?
I wasn't surprised to see them on the podium. I was a little bit surprised by the silver medal. I think they beat the Filipinos on their home ground in a very close encounter in the semi-finals, and earned their spot in the finals. And of course, the Thais are just one class above us. Well, it shows that you don't need a purpose-built ice rink to do well. Right. Right. Of course, what I think the key point is that we don't decide on capital investment in terms of sporting facilities just by looking at performance in the games, right? Otherwise, when the sport doesn't do well, we take back the facility. Yeah. So I think that my message to them would be continue to interest more people into this sport. Today, it is still a very much niche sport in Singapore, and as more people participate in this sport, I think it will grow on its own.
So even though ice skating athletes and they all delivered 4 gold medals, you don't think it's enough of a reason for Sports Singapore to now consider building a purpose-built ice rink instead of our athletes having to fight for time? I mean, I know the ice hockey fellas, they train at 1 a.m. in the morning. After work, they go back home, get dinner, and they come and train at 1, 2 a.m. in the morning because they cannot compete on the ring when the public is playing at JQ.
Yeah.
So do you think it's about time, 2020, we start thinking of building an ice rink for the national athletes?
I think those considerations are always reviewed, right? As we consider our investment in public sporting facilities.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just apply to ice rink; it applies across the board.
Sure.
Right now, we have to find a financially sustainable model, right, for that to happen. Otherwise, it's taxpayer money being spent on such facilities. Yeah. So, like I said, continued long-term development of a sport would obviously be positive for the growth of the sport, and that would definitely have impact on decisions regarding investment in facilities.
Okay. We are more than halfway through this SEA Games review show, so we now turn the focus to new sports, and we saw the debut of esports, breakdancing or breaking, followed by underwater hockey and even surfing. So let's touch on dance sport, which is making its comeback at the Games since 2007. This time, they included the new discipline of breaking or breakdancing, for those of us who were in the 80s as a kid, which we saw Jeremy Sim win a bronze medal. Richard, how significant is his 3rd place finish? And what about the Toh siblings in Rachel and Jerome, who won 1 silver and 2 bronze medals on the same day in the waltz and Latin American format?
Okay, I think time will tell how significant the result is. I thought it was a fantastic result. I thought particularly in the waltz, where I think they won the silver. I take my hat off to them because this was the real strength for the Filipinos. They took 10 of the 13 gold medals.
Yeah, wow.
I think Vietnam took 2, and I think Malaysia took the final gold medal. So it was concentrated very much upon the strength of the Filipinos in terms of moving things along. Breakdancing or breaking is, I think, going to be significant. I think they're looking at it for 2024 Olympic Games. I think they'll need to look perhaps at some of the format and how they get away from some of the subjective judging. I know there's some sports like gymnastics and boxing where there's a degree of subjectivity. I think it's they need to look at format, but it's great that it was held in the SEA Games, and it's even better that we win a medal.
Staying with the debut sports element and underwater hockey, I mean, who would have imagined Singapore to make a clean sweep of all 4 gold medals on offer, Richard?
Oh, terrific. I mean, it's one of these things that is very difficult to anticipate beforehand. Clearly, if Philippines includes underwater hockey for the first time ever in their program, they have a strong belief that they're going to win gold medals in there. To go there and win all 4 is a bit of a dream come true. But I think it's actually Singapore's a bit of an aquatic nation.
Exactly.
You know? And we've got lots of raw talent that's there. People that are used to being in around the water. We're a small island nation, and so putting a team together obviously hasn't been too difficult. And I thought they went there and performed brilliantly.
Yeah, I believe there was a 50-year-old player who competed at the SEA Games in a different sport. And that was 30 years ago, and she
medalled as a 12-year-old. In the SEA Games in swimming. Fantastic. What a great story.
And then the men's team, you had Jonathan Chan, the team captain, who was a former water polo player. And then he's coming back, and he won a gold medal as well.
I think the message is that if you learn to swim, it's one of these life skills that never goes away. Right. So you're protecting your children if you get them to swim early. But not only are you protecting your children, you're giving them a whole raft of opportunities further down in areas that you didn't even imagine. It might be canoeing, it might be rowing, it might be sailing, it might be swimming, anything to do with the water. You're giving your kids a life skill that they can take forward, and they've proven it.
Or go on to win gold medals in jiu-jitsu.
Exactly. Let's hear now from underwater hockey, the women's team captain, as well as the men's national coach, David Lambert.
The Filipinos played really well, and I think they pick up their game and put on a great challenge for us. And our girls stepped up, although it was 4-2. It only proved to say that we can only be better, both teams. So I would say that it was a great competition for both teams and a great win for both teams.
Well, it's just it's the fourth dimension. You got to hold your breath and play. And next time you're out playing soccer or basketball, try holding your breath. That's what these guys have to train for. They have to train with oxygen depletion, and they have to actually play hard.
Okay, the 4v4 is done. We've got another one that's coming up.
Yeah, the 6-on-6, that's going to be just as tough. As you saw, this complex is just fantastic. My hat off to Dennis and his crew in the Philippines group, who actually put a spectacular venue together for us to play, and I'm looking forward to the 6-on-6 and hopefully a podium finish for us there.
Okay, awesome.
So Boon Yi, with 4 gold medals, do you reckon the sport will be hosted at the next SEA Games in Hanoi in 2021? If not, then should the NSA continue to fight for more recognition, funding, and for facilities for the sport to continue to evolve here?
First, I'm not sure whether the next time Philippines host SEA Games, whether they will then
Hanoi.
include
Vietnam.
Yeah, but the next time Philippines host,
okay.
Since they miscalculated,
Right.
this time round. Clean sweep, sometimes not a very good idea. Well, just joking. Unfortunately, Hanoi did not field a team, but Vietnam did not field a team. So I'm not hopeful that Vietnam would organize underwater hockey.
It doesn't require new facilities. You're just using an existing swimming pool, and then
Sure. Yeah.
So
of course. But so I'm not hopeful that there will be this sport again in the next SEA Games. But nevertheless, I think it's a very niche sport, like several others in the SEA Games. And the message to the community is that continue to bring more folks into your sport. Leading up to these SEA Games, we had helped the team ensure that they have access to facilities. So they were training in Queenstown for a while, and then they moved on to train in sports school. And I think they carried themselves very well. Four gold medals.
Nice. Yeah, I was there for 2 of them.
Yeah.
It was just mind blowing, and looking at the team support there as well.
Yes.
The family members who supported them throughout the campaign, and they even flew back to Singapore ahead of the team's arrival, and they were there at Changi Airport to welcome them as well. So very nice.
Now that half of Singapore know that there is a sport called underwater hockey, we have to teach Singaporeans what underwater hockey is. Because a lot of people still don't know what goes on under the water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's quite a difficult sport to film though.
Believe me, me and my colleague Gary, we were there 2 meters away from the pool, and we were just filming whatever that was above the water, and then luckily we had the privilege of utilizing the underwater footage provided by the organizers.
But it's a very, very athletic sport.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot of teamwork, takes a lot of physical abilities, right? Being able to rotate in terms of coming up to the surface for air and get the job done underneath.
And when they won, you could see the raw emotions of our players, both the men and the women.
Yes.
It just shows the years of preparation and dedication for the sport, which was a relative unknown right until maybe 1 or 2 months before the SEA Games.
And the number of friends and family who were there to support them.
Exactly.
Very.